Unsure exactly what this press conference will be. The governor will take it from there.
Good.
A quick reminder that Issue 2 passed in the general election in November, which set the stage to where we are now.
The day after the recent election, I said that, of course, we accepted the will of the people of the state of Ohio in regard to their desire to have legal recreational marijuana in this state, but that we also had an obligation to make sure that this was done right, that the program was implemented properly. The majority of Ohio voters wanted to be able to buy marijuana in a legal manner. They wanted to minimize the black market, whether it be illegal storefronts or corner drug dealers. And the proponents of Issue 2 specifically stated that they wanted recreational marijuana regulated as alcohol is regulated in the state of Ohio. We have an obligation to implement a safe, legal market in Ohio for those people who want to use recreational marijuana. But we also have an obligation to protect the rights of those who don't want to be exposed to it. The day after the election, I met with the Ohio Department of Commerce Director Sherry Maxfield, who is here with me today, as well as the Ohio Department of Public Safety Director Andy Wilson, who is also with me, as well as Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff, Director of the Ohio Department of Health. I met also with their respective teams. And our purpose was to talk about the language that was in the initiated statute and to hear the concerns that they might have, concerns about the difficulties in its implementation and the risk it poses to Ohio families and Ohio children. We immediately began discussions with Senate leaders and with House leaders about ways to meet our obligation to the people of the state of Ohio. Yesterday, in this room, we had a very lengthy meeting with Senate and House leaders and staff to discuss issues in great detail. The bill before the General Assembly, while respecting the will of the voters, the bill that was just passed out in the Senate committee, while respecting the will of the voters, deals with the practical challenges of implementing its program and protects as best we can our children, our families, and those who don't want to be exposed to marijuana at all. It's very important, I believe, that this bill that is now in front of the Senate pass and become law. And it's important that this occur as soon as possible. Let me talk about where we will be tomorrow without the enactment of this piece of legislation. Without the enactment of this bill, we will have the following situation. While it will be legal for Ohio citizens to possess marijuana, there will be no place for them to legally buy it. This bill deals with this, and it deals with it by speeding up the time frame when adults will be able to purchase recreational marijuana legally, thus reducing the opportunity for the black market to flourish. And as I've talked to the director, one of her big concerns is the fact that this black market will just take off. People will be getting it from many sources, none of them legally. The consumption will go up. People will be able to use it, but they won't be able to legally buy it anywhere. We do not need an expanding black market. Without this bill, people could be buying marijuana that has fentanyl in it. The leading cause of death in the state of Ohio of overdoses is fentanyl, 80% of our deaths. It could be marijuana with pesticides in it, metals in it, other toxic contaminants that we know are often found in black market marijuana. Next, without the passage, excuse me, without the passage of this bill, our children may be exposed to marijuana smoke in any public place. For example, while waiting in line to see the Nutcracker at Playhouse Square in Cleveland next week. Another example might be while enjoying any of the numerous Christmas public light displays throughout the state of Ohio. And each of us, I'm sure, can supply our own example. Further, without this bill, we're going to see more and more signs and billboards for illegal marijuana, including ads targeting our youth. This bill will speed up the process for enacting advertising regulations, and so that we can get control of these advertisements for illegal marijuana. This bill provides important protections to help prevent all of these very bad consequences. This bill will also create a permanent source of funding for the following: suicide prevention programs, the 988 programs, substance use treatment and prevention, poison control centers, safe driving initiatives, law enforcement training, jail construction, drug task forces, marijuana record expungement, and marijuana control operations. All of these are in need of funding, and all of these under this bill will be permanently funded. I urge both houses to pass this bill right away and to send it to me for my signature. We're talking a moment ago about what we're beginning to see in Ohio, and we started seeing these the day after the election. People trying to sell marijuana. I'm brazen enough to put up signs like this. This was found in Ohio. We don't intend to advertise for these people, but this is what is happening, and people are already assuming that they can buy marijuana legally. We will be doing in Ohio what we do in regard to liquor. It is a control operation. It's a controlled state. And so people cannot today buy it, but they can have it tomorrow morning. In a few hours at midnight, they'll be able to have it, they'll be able to consume it, but they won't be able to legally buy it. That is a recipe for disaster. And it's very important for the House, for the Senate to get this passed and for us to be able to move on. So happy to answer any questions.
Governor, what is your understanding of where things stand with the House? We know the bill's going to pass the Senate today with bipartisan support. What have you done to get House support?
Yeah, I have had long conversations with the leadership, with those who are working on the bill. They know exactly, I think, what the concerns are. The director had the opportunity, both directors yesterday, as I said, to explain in detail exactly what the problems are connected with the language of the bill and what we're kind of a mess we're going to be in tomorrow morning. So, you know, some of this is complicated, and but it was important to bring the director in. And she gave them, I think, a very, very good briefing. They had questions. You have to ask them if they had any concerns about that. But I think there's a real understanding after that meeting about why we have to move, and that there has to be a sense of urgency. So I believe the Senate is going to pass this, maybe passing it shortly. I would urge the House to pass this. Look, we listened to concerns expressed by members of the House. This is not a bill that has everything in it that I want. It has some things that I might not want. But are part of our democratic process with two houses and a governor, and is that we try to work things out. And so while this is a Senate bill, we did listen to what the House said, and you know, tried to come up with something that we believe that they can support.
What's your understanding, Governor, what's your understanding on the tax rate?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah, this is,
at that level?
yeah, this is going to generate, I think, Sherry, what did we say, about 280? 280. When it's up for a whole year and moving, it's going to generate about $280 million. And so you'd have to ask them, you have to look at the exact, but I was looking at the kind of the bottom line, what that tax was, and then frankly, what the best way to spend it, and we.
Well, there was some concern that would price people out. I mean, a higher tax rate
Sure.
would make it more expensive and push people to the black market.
Yeah, we don't think that's true at all. We think it puts us in a reasonable spot, and that's certainly, we all agreed that we had to find a sweet spot. We wanted to be able to tax it, and look, this is it takes some money to even police this and to run this. So, we wanted sufficient money to do that, and frankly, do some other things that we thought were in the public interest. On the other hand, we don't want it to be so high that it does, in fact, shove people, to the black market. And so we think we've hit the sweet spot. I don't know if there's any exact science to it, but we think that we've hit the right spot.
Governor, do you feel that it's a sweet spot, particularly with the THC extract limit set at 50%, which is substantially lower than neighboring states that do have, I don't want to say that state up north, we've heard that a lot this week. Michigan's is set around 90 or higher, and this is about 40% lower. Is that a sweet spot, or would that potentially drive people out?
We don't think so. I don't know, Director, if you have any comment about that.
So not all states regulate THC content, some just regulate dosage. The fact of the matter is, even if it's a lower THC, you could take more than one dose. So it evens out in the wash, if you will.
And why don't you also talk a little bit while you're up here about something you and I have talked a lot about, and that is the size of the gummies and that concern.
Yes.
To me, it's rather complicated.
Yes, so the initiated statute was silent on dosage. Most states are at a 10 milligram, 100 per package. The initiated statute was 90% THC and no limitation on dosage, which I think raises a whole host of questions and concerns.
Look, just to follow up on that, we want to make sure people know what they're taking. We want them to have some idea of what impact that's going to have on them. And so someone who, takes a big gummy, may have some results that they don't want and we don't want. So we want to make sure people know what they're doing as much as possible.
Governor, you said it's now home grow goes down from 12 to 6. Does that ignore the will of the voters?
No, I don't think so. I think this, I'm going to ask the director to come back. Look, I would prefer no homegrown, but once again, you don't get everything you want in the bill, and this is a question of compromise. But what I want the director to do, though, is to tell how much marijuana this actually is. Because I think it's important in the discussion.
All right, so home grow is supposed to be for personal use. You're not supposed to be able to sell it or even give it away. A mature plant, home grow, will produce roughly between 75 and 100 joints. I want you to multiply that times the 12 that was available under the statute per household, and then remember that growing periods don't take a whole year, so there's multiple growing cycles. Most more sophisticated growers can get 3 cycles a year, so you do the math.
It's a lot. And so what's in this bill is still much exceeds what a person would be able to consume themselves. And so, again, the idea, I think what people were voting on, they wanted to be able to grow it themselves for their own consumption. They can clearly do that under this bill. In fact, they're going to have a lot more than they can consume themselves.
Are there any glaring examples in this bill that you do not agree with?
I think part of, trying to work out a compromise is not to stand up here and talk about the things you don't like. So, but look, I think it's a good bill. I think it's a good bill. Part of this is a compromise. Going back, I didn't vote for the bill. I was not in favor, or I did not vote in favor of this ballot initiative, but the people voted for it. And as I said the day after the election, we have an obligation to follow the will of the people, unless that's changed at some point. But we also have an obligation to make this work and to try to protect people who, don't want to be exposed to marijuana smoke, but also the people who are consuming marijuana, to make sure that it's pure, that is, in fact, it is safe. And so all of these changes, a whole bunch of the changes, I think, bode well for those objectives. The objectives we have, I think we're meeting with this bill. I think it's a very, very good bill. And, it's imperative that this thing get passed. What we don't want is a situation where the black market grows, and we don't want a situation really where people don't know what the rules are. And we just need to get this done and, help get it out for the people of the state of Ohio to understand exactly what's in it, and we'll move ahead with the implementation as the people ask us to do.
Governor, are you planning on asking the House to reconvene tonight? They've adjourned until 9 a.m.?
No. Look, I think, I'm not going to tell the Speaker how to conduct the House. I think the important thing is that this gets passed. And, if it's tomorrow, that's okay. But what we don't want is this to go on day after day. And we don't want a situation where, this just doesn't get passed. This needs to get passed.
So does this need an emergency clause? Because even if it did pass tonight as written, it would still take 90 days for it to go into effect.
That's right. But again, it's a real signal. And when you talk about, the people who are in the black market, they can operate for 90 days. But if you're in the black market, you may not decide to invest a whole lot if you've only got 90 days of action ahead of you. So, again, would I like it to be in effect right now? Yes, I would. That's not where we are. But I think that, it will send the right signals and tell everybody what the rules are. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No,
Got
I
it?
think that
Okay.
covers
Who else?
Allowing dispensaries to sell this is a big change. Is the industry ready, and why was that the right choice?
So actually, shortly after it passed, I had several members of the industry come to me and say, could I do this as a pilot program? And I reminded him, we're ruled by laws, and I couldn't just do that on my own. I think they will be ready. And obviously, if anybody isn't ready right away to sell rec, we're not going to make them, as long as they continue to keep their doors open for medical purposes. That would be fine, too.
Did you look at other states, how their best practices and how they handle this?
So we are in contact with all the states that regulate marijuana, both on the medical side and the rec side. To the governor's point about the delay, I'm going to use New York as an example. And for those of you who follow this issue, it's pretty well known. It took a long time to get the program up and running. In Manhattan alone, they had over 1,000 pop-up, i.e. illegal stores. And so this is a race to try and close the door.
Question for Andy. It's illegal to cross state lines right now with marijuana, and it's still going to be under this law. It's also illegal for you to buy on the black market. How is public safety going to handle, are you going to target people that are crossing the border? Or is it illegal sale? Do you arrest the dealer or the buyer?
So look, our frontline law enforcement officers and deputies deal with this every day. So with respect to the black market and sales on the black market, it's going to be business as usual, going after traffickers, going after people who are illegally putting these drugs out on the street. The calculus just changes a little bit because people are allowed to possess the amounts in the enabling language right now. So yeah, I mean, obviously we do that anyways. We pick off people who are bringing drugs illegally across state borders all the time. So we will continue to do what we're doing.
So in this 90-day window, would you prefer people go to Michigan to get marijuana or buy it on the black market?
None of you thought?
Neither. What else? Anybody else? Okay. Everybody good? All right, have a good evening, everybody. Thank you very much.
All right, so that is it from Governor Mike DeWine, who is urging the passage of changes essentially to issue 2, which everybody, for those that voted in November, remember you voted yes or no on issue 2, which would allow the legalization of marijuana in the state of Ohio. That was brought forward by the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. That coalition essentially would create marijuana legalization under the guise or under the rules that we take from alcohol. So you must be 21 years or older to purchase. Home growing would be limited. There's a lot of restrictions on that. 10% tax on it as well. That passed in November. On December 7th, it was declared that they would become legal. Now, December 6th at 5 o'clock, this is when the governor is announcing that he is requesting that the Ohio House and Ohio Senate make these changes. I actually just got off the phone with the minority whip in the Ohio Senate literally minutes before this began, and he basically said to me, look, I have no idea what's going on. Tried to ask him a couple of questions on it. We ended up going on to talking about a different thing on this. But essentially, what he said is the Senate proposed a bill that they really like, but they don't know if this is going to happen. That was Senator Kent Smith. So I spoke with him very briefly on this, and he said, look, I've been telling this to every reporter. I'm going to tell it to you as well. We just don't know what's going on right now, and they're going to be in for a long day. In fact, Senator Smith told me he's planning on being back in the Cleveland area tomorrow, but is unsure if that's going to happen due to potentially having to pass or work through some bills throughout the next hours. At midnight tonight is when this goes live, is when it becomes legal. But there could be changes to it as well. Now, I want to stress here, the governor wasn't changing the legality. Marijuana would become legal in the state. It would be just making amendments to issue 2, and those amendments would make some heavy restrictions. Now, he was alluding to some of them. My issue right now with a lot of this is we're not specifically sure. He never said the specific either Senate bill or House bill that he's discussing. We think we have a good idea. I'm saying we, Caitlin McCarthy and I, are working on this together. But we're not totally sure. Now, I'm going to show you right now a live look. This is the 135th General Assembly. You're looking at the Senate Government Oversight Committee that went on pause when the governor started to speak. I was speaking with, again, Senator Kent Smith. He did not know the governor was going to be speaking at 5 o'clock, so that came as a little bit of an announcement for him as well. So we're hoping to hear some more specifics on this. A couple of notes that I took here. Changes would be made to home growing. So currently there would be restrictions, basically cut in half the amount of home growing that could be done. The amount that is taxed could potentially be changed, or at least where that money is going toward. He mentioned, he being the governor, suicide prevention, substance abuse, things like that. This would also speed up the time frame in which marijuana would start to be sold. The governor's main issue, or one of the main issues from the governor, at least it seemed from his conversation, was essentially that the legalization happens on the 7th. But selling is going to take some time. We're going to be needing to wait for people to be able to actually get access to permits and licenses to be able to have their facility eligible to sell marijuana. They're going to need security, things like that. They're going to need the state to make sure that they can do it. That's not going to happen until at the earliest summer of 2024, if not more than that. Let's think about next year, potentially into 2025. So it's a few months, if not a year, until we could get to that point. And that seemed to be one of the governor's main issues. He brought up things like the black market and selling of marijuana laced with things. Now, he did not provide any statistical backing on any of that information that he said, specifically on how much marijuana typically is in the black market, how much fentanyl is found in marijuana, things like that. He said it as a more overarching thing. But his main issue seems to be that marijuana will be legalized, but purchasing it anywhere will be near impossible. So it's an expedited process to get that done. Now, what could that do? We have no idea. And again, I'm still waiting to find out specifically what bill he's referencing that he wants to get passed. I can hear you asking, is there a chance that this can actually be done? The answer is yes. The House, the Senate could both pass it, and the governor could sign it before midnight tonight. If that's the case, a lot of confusion could happen tomorrow for folks that understand what issue 2 is, voted for issue 2, and then wake up tomorrow and there's a difference. We're going to try and break this down, at least make some sense of it. But again, trying to figure out exactly what bill the governor was referencing. He did not say a specific number for us during that press conference. All right, that is it for our coverage here on 19 News. We will have much more coming onto 19 News at 5:30, over on CBS. We will have that until 6:30, and then, of course, much more on air and online. For now, I'm Jeff Sloss with 19 News. Have a great day and great night. Much more to come, of course, from us here.
From Cleveland's most accurate weather team, 19 News, now streaming on Samsung Smart TV. Search for Channel 1035.